Hi everyone, I'm Lisa and welcome to Lisa's Stamp Studio. Today's project is going to be using the Coffee Cafe stamp set. And I'm into this trying different directions thing, so I'm going to try that on today's card as well. Here's the card that we're going to be creating. We're going to be using quite a few of the images in that stamp set, but in different directions to create a really fun layout. I'm also going to show you some tips about masking. So let's head over to the stamp table and let's get started. So here is the card. Really cute, huh? We're going to be doing a little bit different focal point here, but I'll be talking about this as we move along in the card. You're going to be able to find the cutting dimensions for today's project over on my blog. If you're here from YouTube, you'll be able to click on the I button here. If you hover over the screen with your mouse or your finger, the I button will appear at the top of the screen. That information button is going to lead you over to my blog, and there you'll be able to find pictures and cutting dimensions for today's project. I'm using a bone folder to get that nice crisp edge. I'm a big fan of that. Base of our card we're not going to do too much with, so I'm just going to set that aside. I have a piece of Whisper White cardstock, and this is where I'm going to do all my stamping. And I'm using one ink color, Early Espresso. So for those of you that are new stampers, this is great because you can still make stunning cards with just one ink pad color. I have mounted various pieces from the stamp set called Coffee Cafe. I have a piece of Whisper White cardstock, and this is where we're going to be doing our stamping. I'm going to be using just one color ink pad. This is Early Espresso. So for those of you that are new stampers, don't think you can't make cute cards with just one color. You sure can. So I've got that prepared. I've mounted various different images. We're going to be using quite a few of these on today's card. So I'm going to start with the large coffee cup image, and I'm inking that up in that Early Espresso ink. Photopolymer, again, makes this so easy to use. And I'm going to stamp the first cup here near the very bottom left corner of my card. Then I'm going to grab the whipped cream topping. That's a fun image, isn't it? I'm going to ink that up as well, and I'm going to add that to the top of this cup. Pressing firmly. I'm now going to flip the card around. So now this image is upside down, and I want to add another cup, but this time I want it to go in the other direction. I want to leave a little bit of room for the lid. So I recommend that we stamp the lid first. We're going to go ahead and ink up that lid in the Early Espresso ink, and I'm going to add a little bit of color here on the edge. I'm trying not to overlap, but if you do, that's quite all right. And then I'm coming back in with that cup image. And I'm going to line this up the best I can, and I'm going to attach those two pieces. All right, now we've got the bottom half of the card down. Now we're going to work on the top half. So here at the very top, we're going to stamp another cup. So you can see all I'm doing really is just changing directions. So I'm going to line this up, and I'm going to stamp. All right, and this one, I don't really have much room for a cup lid, and I don't really want one. I want to make the cups different. Now on this one here, I'm going to be adding a top to my coffee cup. You've seen these little clear lids that go on top of typically a Frappuccino cup. So I'm going to ink that one up. I want to make sure I have enough room to make this fit. So I am actually going to leave room also because I'm going to add a straw to that. So I'm going to stamp a little bit of that here. So I've left a little room. And I'm coming back in with the coffee cup image, and I'm just going to do my best to line that up so those pieces are attached. We talked about the straw, so I have mounted the long straw here, but I want to make sure that the long portion of my straw doesn't impede into the inside of my cup. So I'm going to use a Post-it note to do some masking here, and I'm going to tape that right here where I don't want it to go. Post-it notes are very, very thin, so you'll be able to get a really nice stamped image here. If you use a piece of cardstock, there's going to probably be a little ridge or a little bump there. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to ink up my straw. I'm going to ink up about half because I know I'm not even going to need that much. And I'm just going to peek out my straw just a little bit from the top of my cup here. Remove that Post-it note, and you can see that the straw just stays within the lid. All right, so let's flip this around one more time. All right, so now I'm going to use the striped straw image, and I'm actually going to put my straw on this side. So I'm going to ink it up again in that Early Espresso, and I'm actually going to line this up right about where the whipped cream creases. I'm trying to avoid the lid of the other cup. This stamp set also has a really cute like cup cozy that goes around the center. So I'm going to add that as well. So I'm going to add that here to the center. And if you manipulate this, you'll be able to see where it fits the best. So I've got one there. And I'm going to leave these cups without a label. And then I'm going to grab this little itty bitty tiny heart image that's in that stamp set. And this is the open heart image. So I'm going to ink that up. And I'm going to add a heart down here inside my cup. And I'm going to add another one inside that cup cozy, that little banner there. And then I'm going to flip this, and I'm going to add a few more. I want to bring in some red just for some interest on this card. So I'm going to add another here. And on this cup here, with the lid on it, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to actually stamp it in the center near the top. All right, so now we've got all of our stamping complete. I'm going to set that aside for just a minute. And while I have the ink pad out, I have cut myself a small piece of crumb cake cardstock. And before I get started, I'm going to use my paper snips, and I'm going to create a banner tip on this one side. The easiest way to do that is to make a small slit in the middle of the paper. That's going to guarantee that both ends here are going to be even. So then I'm going to come from the outside edge to the top of that slit. I'm going to do the same thing now on both sides. All right, so now we've got our banner. I want the flag on my banner to be on the left. On my original card here, you'll see that I have the word friend, but that's actually part of a much bigger greeting. But I wanted just the word. Now, of course, if you have the matching marker, you can use that, but a lot of you tell me you don't have the markers. So I want to show you a masking technique. So with another Post-it note or the same one, you can come back in here and you are going to mask off the words that you don't want, which in my case is everything above the word friend. The sticky edge of my Post-it note is here at the top, so it's going to stick to the block. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to dip it in my ink pad and ink it up. And that Post-it note's going to absorb all the ink of all the other words we're not going to use. And then what I'm going to do is, because it's photopolymer, I'm going to actually mount it here on the top of this banner. Firm, even pressure, making sure you've got a good image and a lift. I'm going to use another scrap piece of crumb cake cardstock, and this time I'm using the little words that say hi. Really tiny, but really cute, and I thought this would make a nice greeting, so I'm going to stamp that right here in the middle because we're going to punch that out. I'm using the 1/2-inch circle punch to punch out the word hi. Fits perfectly. I'm going to add that here. So we've got those two pieces, and then I'm going to use the 3/4-inch circle punch just to give that a layer, and that's that same early espresso. That's the cardstock. So these pieces are going to go together. I chose to put a dimensional between the two, and I've got just a couple left here, and you can see, look how large this is. Now, if you're having trouble getting it on there, I want to introduce you to mini dimensionals. These are a great thing, and I'll tell you what, they fit perfectly. No more chopping up those bigger ones. So I'm just going to take off that paper backing, and I'm going to mount this in the center of that layer here. This piece is going to go on top of here. Now you can use another dimensional if you'd like, or in my case, I'm just going to add just a little bit of snail adhesive to that bumpy surface. Could have done that probably before I mounted it, right? Okay, and then I'm going to put that here. So now I have a greeting that reads, "Hi, friend." Next step is I'm going to bring in a little bit of red because I want to use a red base for this card. I want you to be able to see how I'm using the chunky side of the marker, or the brush tip of this marker. All the Stampin' Up! Markers are dual-sided. There's one side for journaling or writing and one side for coloring. So I'm just going to take that beautiful chiseled tip. It makes it really easy to get inside of here. I'm going to color in my hearts. The other thing is the straw. Do you see how there's white areas in here? So let's go ahead and let's take that red marker and let's just stripe in some of those areas just to add a little bit of color. And again, it's probably not going to be perfect, and that's okay. So we're just going to get a little bit of color in there on the edges just to make that appear straight. Okay, so now we've got our straw. I'm going to flip this over, and this is where we're going to add our adhesive. I use a little bit in the four corners And then I've cut a layer of early espresso cardstock. Remember, all the cutting dimensions for this project are over on my blog. If you hover over the screen, if you're here from YouTube, it'll take you right to this blog post, so you don't have to worry about hunting for it. Now, it never fails. I have ink everywhere, so I like to rub from the back. The base of my card is here, and then this is going to get mounted here with more adhesive. So I'm going to add a little bit more here and those corners. And then I'm going to mount this on the base of the card. And I'm just eyeing it so I have a small border on either side. Okay, and I like to rub from the back. Remember that banner that we made? Well, here comes the fun part. Let's add some more dimensionals. This time I think these larger ones are going to fit really well. I've got just a few left on here, so we'll take those. And I'm going to take off that paper backing as well. And now this is going to go right across here. Now you can choose to come to here or all the way to the edge of the card. That's completely up to you. So I'm going to come all the way to the edge today. Just going to do something a little bit different than the original card so you can see two different variations. And then I like to give those little ends a little bit of a fluff. So there you go. Here's the card we just created. Wasn't that quick? Here's the original one. Now remember, we talked about this in the beginning. This is gold metallic thread behind here. The only difference between these two cards is, of course, this comes to the edge and this one comes to the border. And then I took some metallic thread and I just wound it up and I stuck it on top of one of those dimensionals before I mounted it. Really, really easy. Which one do you like better? I'd love to know. Go ahead and leave me a comment. I'm so grateful you came by to watch today. Remember, all these products are available in my online store. Click on that I button to head over to my blog to check out the pictures and the supplies used today. Thanks so much for joining me, everyone. I hope to see you next time. Have a great day.